Okay.
Joy, Mr. Cross, and Ms. Munoz.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Good morning and welcome to the MAPS 4 Citizen Advisory Board meeting for February 6th, 2025. Item number 1, call to order. Number 2, items for individual consideration. 2A, approval of minutes of the January 10th, 2025 MAPS 4 Citizen Advisory Board meeting. The minutes were included in your packet. If there are any corrections, additions, now? Okay. If not, I would take a motion in a second to approve. The motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2B, receive the MAPS 4 monthly financial report ending December 31st, 2024.
Madam Chair, on the revenue side, for the period ending 12/31, for the month, $12,501,904. For the fiscal year of $72,715,731, and a total of $631,821,854. On the expenditure side for the month, $7,328,972. Fiscal year of $37,730,669, and a total of $252,793,886.
Okay, any questions? Okay, if not, I'll take a motion in a second to receive Mr. Todd's report. Please cast your votes.
I'm a yay. I just happened to close myself out accidentally. Sorry. Might have been that I was incognito.
You're impersonating. The motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2C, recommend approval of final acceptance for the MAPS 4 CB Park raw water line and replacing maintenance bond into effect. Mr. Todd.
I always like bringing you final acceptance of projects, and today we have Josh Daughtry from CEC to just go over and remind you what this project consisted of and how it turned out.
Welcome.
Josh Daughtry with CEC, Madam Chairperson Board, here to present final acceptance of what I'm sure is going to be the most exciting presentation here today for the raw water line improvements at CB Cameron Soccer Park. This is a project that is a small piece of the larger investment and larger projects that are going on at both CB Cameron and South Lakes. We'll start with a quick why behind the project. Before this project, the existing fields at that park, including the newest 5 fields, were irrigated with potable water, meaning water that came out of the city's treated water infrastructure that is sufficient for drinking. And so we are in a unique position here at this soccer complex to take advantage of Lake Hefner being right nearby and the water treatment plant. And so we were able to use raw water from Lake Hefner at a much lower cost, much lower burden, to use that now for irrigation of not only the current fields, but the planned expansion at CB Cameron. Of course, as a part of this project, wanted to make sure we design the alignment to prevent any conflicts with any of the future improvements that are planned out there, which we have done, and also provide considerations for phasing for additional improvements out there in the future. I know this is a complicated slide here, but at the bottom left, you'll see the very north end of Lake Hefner. There is in cyan or light blue, there is a gravity raw water line that comes out of the north side of Lake Hefner and feeds the fish hatchery ponds just on the bottom side of the dam there. We have tapped into that line and provided another gravity line over to where you might see on the middle of the left-hand side booster pump. We have put a booster pump at that location, which then pressurizes that water to irrigation level pressures that we are then able to send out to all of the existing irrigation infrastructure on the fields right now. And then in the future, we will then connect all of the new irrigation lines to that raw water line, pressurized raw water line as well. This is a slightly more detailed map showing how we have created that utility corridor to prevent any conflict with the proposed improvements. Schematic of the actual booster pump itself, along with pictures of it installed. Again, this project is completely done. It is in place. Final punch has been completed, and it is in operation. One part of this, which was unique, is the installation of a zebra mussel zapper. The existing water treatment plant and many water treatment plants and water bodies in Oklahoma have to mitigate the spread of zebra mussels. It's an invasive species in water bodies here. And so we use this particular product. It's in use at other places across Oklahoma to much success. We've used this product to prevent zebra mussel infestation of this infrastructure. And so it is in place and it is working. It uses an impressed electrical current to kill the larvae of the zebra mussels and only the larvae of the zebra mussels. And the final slide here is just a diagram showing how we have interrupted the existing supply from the city's potable water system with our new raw water line system. It has been designed such that the very top of this diagram here, you see a piece of flanged pipe there. In the event the booster station raw water line supply goes down for any reason, we can quickly replace that and revert back to using potable water in times of repair if we had to get the booster pump station back up and running, so we would not lose the ability to irrigate existing fields. And that completes the presentation.
Okay. You're right, it was thrilling. Learned some things. Didn't know about the mussels. Any questions? Okay. If not, I would take a motion in a second to approve the final plans. Okay, please cast your votes.
So says waiting. I approve.
He's voted. Our technology is sleepy this morning. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Moving on to item 2D, recommend approval of addendas number 1 and 2 for the maps for animal shelter, adding contract bid base only to the tune of $34,257 and approving the contract and bonds.
So glad to be bringing you this project for the animal shelter, long awaited. It did come in over budget as far as what was in the construction item, the construction line item. We were able to look at the entire project as a whole, and fortunately there was some places that were over budgeted in there. Specifically, there was money in the design item that we don't feel like we're going to need anymore because we've completed design. And then a little bit in the admin, feel like it was a little over budgeted. So what we proposed on this is, and also contingency is healthy. So what we propose is that all the construction money be used, 1.178500 out of contingency be used. That still leaves us with $2 million in contingency. $1 million out of the design line item, which, as I said, design is complete now. That leaves us with 18,000 in that line item, and then 110,000 out of the admin piece. That gets us to where we can award this bid. We received 2 bids on this. They were within a couple of $100,000, so we feel like they're very legitimate bids, and we're glad that we can figure this out. This comes with a recommendation from subcommittee.
Okay. Any comments from the subcommittee? Okay. Any questions?
Just my understanding that this does not include the alternatives, this is just the base.
That's correct. That's correct. There's no alternates on this. As we typically do, if we can get significantly through with construction and we still have contingency, maybe we can add those alternates.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Chelsea.
When you say you were able to move some out of the admin line item, was that just over budgeting for
was.
like projection of staffing, or what else is included in admin?
There's testing in there. There's chargebacks from other departments. Yeah, those are the main things in there.
Okay, but in general, is like the staffing line going to change or anything to that effect? I know that was a big consideration.
So also the cost for ADG program expenses is in there. We've projected that out and feel like this is a reasonable amount, still leaves us enough to cover it. If for some reason we do come up short, we still have that contingency money in there.
So we can still staff it entirely?
Yes,
No issues with
yes,
that. Okay,
absolutely.
Awesome, thank
Good
you.
questions. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. If not, I'd take a motion in a second to approve. Please cast your votes. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2E, presentation on the construction progress of the MAPS 4 Fairgrounds Coliseum.
As we try to do with especially the big projects, keep you updated on what's going on. Travis Pauley from Populous is here to show you what's going on at the Coliseum.
Hello.
Hello, good morning. Happy to be here to give you guys an update on what's going on out at the fairgrounds. It's been a few months, so we'll go through this presentation, look at some pictures of the construction out there. We'll talk about a few of the cost updates, and then I'll give you a little brief schedule of what's to come for the next few months out there. So overall, construction is moving along really well. Everybody's really happy with how it's going out there. If you've been by it recently, you can see it's really taken shape. That front rendering that you just saw at the start of the presentation, here's what it looks like right now, that same view. As you roll up into the facility from Gordon Cooper Boulevard off of May Avenue, this is the entry that greets you right now. That black material on there is our insulation and subframing that our panels will go onto once they wrap all the way around. They're wrapping those around from the back side of the building to the front side of the building. So as we walk around the outside, we'll walk around the outside real quick, and then we'll jump inside and take a look at a bunch of pictures on the inside as well. On the southwest side there, you can see the panels that have been coming around from the back. Those will all kind of fade from a darker gray to the lighter white color with the big OKC there on the back side of the building. On the other side of the building is where our plaza space is, facing the fairgrounds. You can see our big planters going in there. If you go out there, those things are massive. They're going to bring a ton of great green space into the fairgrounds where they really need that. It's a lot of paving out there, so bringing in some trees and shade and green space is going to be really nice on that side of the building. Our big plaza there extending out will host all kinds of events out there at the fairgrounds. This is the side that kind of is inward facing to the fairgrounds, so really nice big plaza space out there. You can see our kind of colored paving strips that extend out from our columns all along that plaza space as well. And the fade of those color panels coming from the back side of the building up towards the front there. You can see the north side facing the north has all been clad in the panels, and it's just about ready to go on that side. As we hop inside of the building, this is our main entry, our big grand staircase coming in, going up to our main concourse level. So our main entry is there on your right. On the left, there'll be a really neat wood diagonal wall with a big OKC graphic on there, greeting visitors as they enter the building. As we walk upstairs of our grand stair, as you get to the top, this is the view looking down from where we just saw. So this is a really, really great feeling area right now. You've got the big windows that are looking out that front facade, straight out towards the downtown skyline. Big open concourse space. Our main atrium bar is there to your right. The bowl is just to our left. And then we've got all this open concourse space for them to fit out with vendors and tables and whatever they want to put out there. As we turn around from that view and look into the bowl, you can see that we've got seats going in. So that's the really exciting thing that's going on right now. The bowl is really starting to take shape. So all of our seats are going in. I'll go through several shots here of the seating installation around the bowl. They're moving around the bowl kind of from the entry side all the way around. The seating and really the entire bowl kind of fades up from a gray to black, as you can see. One of the things that we wanted to do with that was just bring a little bit of excitement to the bowl. We do have lots of events that sell out in here, but we have a lot of events that are only a few hundred people here and there during the livestock events and things like that, because they're here for 2 weeks at a time. And so part of the idea with this is to bring some excitement to that bowl, even when there's only a few hundred people in there. So when you see it on TV or something, it doesn't look like just a totally blank backdrop. So kind of doing that random pattern in there helps with that. You can see the telescopic seats down there on the floor. This next one shows that a little bit closer. So those are all the gray color, and then it fades up to the black. So telescopics on the bottom, and then at the very top, we've got our drink rail, which this is the lounge. So I'll jump to drink rail after this. This is our lounge space, kind of our premium space on the north end right here. You can see this all has drink rail and actually will have caster seats that are individual seats in this space with the lounge back behind it. All of these drink rails that go around the lounge and all around the entire concourse will have a quartz countertop put on top of them. And then underneath that countertop that you see there, we'll have a power strip running along there with plug-ins for all your phones and charging devices and things like that. So, and then around the concourse, this will all have stools on it as well. So this is one of the areas where the fairgrounds is constantly touring people out there for different shows and things like that. And every time they're walking around with folks out here, they're super excited about this setup here. Just because, like we've mentioned, these are a lot of the tenants out there aren't people that are just here for a 2-hour game. They're out here for weeks at a time. They're coming in and out for different shows. So having a space like this that they can post up at the concourse and still see all the action that's going on, go get some concessions and have their phone right there is going to be a great amenity for them. Another thing I'll mention about the seats I'll go back here where we can see some of these. As we flip through these, you can see, there we go. These are all 21-inch minimum seat widths here. So really good size seat, all padded, fully upholstered seats, really easily wipe down surfaces for all the dirt events that go on in there. So that's one of the things that we wanted to do here is not necessarily just try to shove as many people in as we can into this space. It's about the quality of the experience that they're having there, right? That's what we're trying to enhance what happens out here. So everybody's got a really nice padded seat here, a good sized seat with amenities all throughout the space. So it's going to be a great experience for them. As we go around the concourse, you can see we're starting to get finishes in just about everywhere. Our restrooms are getting tiled, floors are tiled, walls are tiled, mirrors and toilet partitions are getting ready to go in. We've got the big, nice trough sinks throughout all the restroom spaces, so they're starting to finish up. Obviously, we don't have toilet partitions in here yet, but lights are starting to go in, and we're getting really close. Once again, this is the most exciting shot, but it is exciting if you're working out there because we got heat going in the building now. So we got our boilers are working. Heat is going, so if you go in there and walk around, it's not freezing right now. It feels really nice in a lot of these spaces. So the HVAC systems are starting to kick on, and it's really getting close. Our main kitchen here, we've got our hoods are installed, our walk-in coolers and freezers are installed to our left, and equipment is going in this month. So those spaces are starting to get really close as well. You can see ceiling installations are going in throughout the building as well. You can see the lights are installed there, and really we're just ceiling tiles to remain for the ceiling. We're also getting some really fun stuff like our signage is starting to show up. So these are all a bunch of full-size mock-ups that'll go in, starting to give you a feel for what all the signage around the space is going to feel like. Those signs on the left are kind of our standard look for what you'll see for wayfinding throughout the space. So when you're looking up for your section numbers or your seat numbers, that's kind of the look that you'll see. On the right, we've got one of our concession signs. So each concession kind of has a different motif, but they're all kind of bringing this fun vintage vibe into it. That's where we see our pops of color around it. Taking kind of some of the retro looks of some of the different areas of Oklahoma City was the inspiration for some of that signage. Some cost updates for you. So it's been a few months since we presented a change order to you, but we have had some things come up in the last few months here. I'll walk through each of these, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to discuss them. Item one was a restroom wall adjustment. So under the main lobby restrooms, the raker beam that holds up our bowl was a little bit lower than what we anticipated, and it was eaten into the wall where the restroom sink was. So we had to pull that wall out about 2 feet to clear the raker beam. So that's what item number one is. Item number two, the ceiling wall adjustments in the data room. So all of our data rooms, or 6 of our data rooms, we had open ceilings so that all our equipment could go in and out of it. Those data rooms have dedicated HVAC equipment to keep the equipment cool. And looking at making sure that we can keep that equipment cool and talking to our HVAC engineers and our contractors, we determined that in order to make sure that we can keep that equipment cool enough, we need to close up those rooms. So even though it's going to be a little bit harder getting the equipment in and out, we got to close up the rooms to make sure that we can condition them properly. So that's the cost to put ceilings into those data rooms and take walls all the way up to deck and the other ones. Item three is the stair wall fur out. So we had some steel was in our stair wall where electrical was running through. It's a 1 hour rated wall. And so we needed to just create a little fur out so we could run our electrical through that wall and get past the steel obstruction in the wall. Item four and 7 are both more underground concrete that we've run into, unfortunately, out there. As we've gone out from the building, we've run into a couple more unforeseen things underground that we didn't realize were there, that weren't documented. That one is a reinforced pipe that we have to get a water line under. Item 7 appears to be, that one is out in front of the building, in front of the main entry. Item 7 is in the back of the building, back where you cross over the railroad by the loading dock area. It appears to be honestly just an extra load of concrete at the end of a project that they dumped at a foundation for a transformer, and we had to chip it away to get our new electrical duct bank connected to the transformer. So getting around some of that unforeseen stuff, unfortunately, is going to cost us a little bit. Item 5 is just providing the power to a gas meter that we didn't have shown there. We had the gas meter, we just didn't have the power hookup. Item 6, interior aluminum door hinges. The door manufacturer that we have that was bid for this project has a different type of hinges than what was in the documents. Those hinges are a little more expensive than the hinges that we had specified. Each manufacturer has a different kind of hinge, and you don't really know what they're going to have until it's bid out. So that's to get the correct hinges on those doors. Item 7 I discussed. 8 is just providing power to the ADA operator that we were missing in the lounge space. We were just missing the power to one of the push button operators. Item 9 is the wiring for the elevator emergency backup. So that is the wiring that will essentially go from 2 of our elevators at the actual elevator control back to our transfer switch that will switch the elevators to a generator backup power in the case of an emergency backup. We had all the equipment there, we were just missing the wiring in the drawings, in the electrical drawings. And then item 10 is soil remediation. So on the back side of the building, back near the loading dock where we cross over that railroad, once again, we ran into some soils that don't have the compaction levels that we need for the new paving that's going there. They tested them, they can't get the compaction we need, so we had to remediate and bring in some new soils in those locations to make sure we get the correct compaction strength. All of those add up to $86,049. Our total for all of our change orders right now is a savings of $241,287, which makes our current contract price $126,234,713. We're $241,000 below our bid price, about a 0.2% reduction below where we started. And this does not change our contract time for substantial completion for the Coliseum. That is still June 1st, 2025. So what you got coming up in the next few months, you'll continue to see those exterior panels being installed on the outside of the building, coming around to the front of the building. The arena seating and railing installation will continue and complete here in the next month or so. The ceiling, lighting, millwork, all that good finished stuff is starting to go in now, so it's really starting to take shape inside. Toilet partitions, food service equipment that we talked about. The lounge is one of the last areas that they're actually building out the walls and everything right now. So walls and ceilings are going in the lounge space right now. That space has a lot of glass partitions, so those are one of the last things that we want to put in. Finished paint and tile. You saw the tile work is already going on. The rest of that will start to finish up here. And then finishing up MEP, grills, diffusers, all of that stuff we talked about. It's already operating in a lot of the areas, so just finishing that out. And then we'll start moving out, finishing up the plazas, all the street work around the facility on Gordon Cooper and Chisholm Trail. And then we're scheduled to start punching this thing out in April. So all this stuff, nothing has affected our substantial completion date. Like I said, we're still on schedule for June 1st. And I think, yep, that's about all I got for you today. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Any questions? Anything from the subcommittee? Yeah, Bob?
Travis, I don't recall, is there a plan for any kind of scoreboard or TV screens or something that would display scores or identify participants in events?
Oh, yeah, we've got a center hung scoreboard that's going in, a brand new center hung scoreboard that's going in the facility, retractable. So it's got a hoist that can go up and down. It's going to be great for them. So yeah, that's something they don't have right now. It's brand new. They have a scoreboard, but this is a brand new scoreboard that they can actually pull up for some events, drop down for other events.
Is this one of the last things installed?
Yeah, the hoist and motor and everything are installed right now.
Okay.
So, but that'll be one of the last things to go in, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Thank you
Thanks
for your
so much.
presentation today. Great progress. Moving on to item 2F. Oh, wait. Oh, the change order. I'm sorry. I'll take a motion in a second to approve the change order. Please cast your votes. Motion passes. Thank you. Now, moving on to item 2F. Oh, that was it. Okay. 2G, recommend approval of final plans and specs to be advertised for the MAPS 4 Family Justice Center.
So we have final plans here for you today. Dan Hayes from AHMM is here to go through the plans. I want to point out that when he gets to the cost piece of it, we need to discuss some creative financing or creative ways that we're going to get this project on the street.
Okay. Dan, welcome.
Thank you. Very pleased to be here. It's been a while since I last presented to you this project, so we're delighted to be here to present final plans and specifications for the Family Justice Centre. Just to remind everyone about where the location of the site is, this is in Midtown. The existing Palomar building is shown there just off Hudson and 11th Street. And the site that the new building will be built on is directly opposite the street with the red box shown there between 11th Street, Park Place and Hudson. On the timeline, so we met with the subcommittee on Tuesday. We're here to speak to you today. And if all goes well, we'll be going to council next week. That will allow us to go to bid mid-February with bids back in the beginning of March. And then hopefully if they come back on budget, then we can get the notice to proceed mid-April with the construction estimated about 22 months, which will result in completion around February 2027. It's a three-story building. The first floor, I'll run over the plans shortly, but the first floor is predominantly client spaces. The second floor is Palomar offices and partnering offices. And the third floor is therapy spaces with a large community hall, multi-use, and that equates to a building that's just under 73,000 square feet. We've been working with Midtown Renaissance, who own the whole of this plot of land at the moment. They will be building a parking garage that you can see there in the center of the city block. And they also have a potential development zone to the bottom there off Park Place. The parking garage, some of the money from our budget has gone towards paying for that parking garage because they will be providing 135 secure parking spaces for Palomar as part of that development. But both of those two areas that are shown there are not part of our scope or our design. However, the overall scheme does require the closure of the alley that runs through the center of the site and the relocation of OG&E electrical lines and also the sewer line as well. So that the pink and blue line that you can see that sort of snake across the site, we've been working with Midtown Renaissance on the exact location of those and how they work their way down to Park Place and be relocated. So we have all the approvals in place to proceed with that work. And the white block that you can see there is the Palomar plan. So talking to you briefly about the actual plans of this building, it's quite complicated because there's a lot going on. So we've grayed out some of the areas just to orientate yourself because we flipped around a few times. The existing Palomar building is down to the bottom right-hand side of the page. Hudson runs across the bottom of the page there. To the right is 11th Street, and to the left is Park Place. And to the top of the page is where the new parking garage will be installed. So if you're a consumer to this building, you enter through the middle of the block off Hudson, where that big pink arrow is. You come into a secure lobby space. If you're past your security checks, you're allowed past that blue line into the main space. All those blue boxes you see there, they are the client intake rooms. So that's where the majority of people who will be using the facility will spend a lot of their time. This is where they meet with the partners and get the help and support that they need. Consumers of the building can be in those rooms from just a couple of hours up to a whole day, up to 8 hours. So one of the key primary designs for this was making sure that every client space within this building has access to natural light and a view of nature. That really helps with healing and calming people down as well. So that's an important aspect of the design. So all those pink arrows that you can see there, the intake rooms that all have that view of a courtyard, a landscape courtyard zone, and access out of that to be able to enjoy it and get a breath of fresh air. The blue dotted line that you see is a walking indoor-outdoor route that people can take to help them calm them down and relax. Those blue intake rooms are surrounded by what we call the lounges. So these are sort of living spaces where people can spend time with other people on their own. They have access to computers. They can fill out important documents they need to. And again, just a social space where people can gather. And off that main corridor space, you also have a kitchen and a client store. So a lot of people who are fleeing domestic violence just arrive at the facility with their clothes on their back. So the client store allows them to pick up clothes and other essential items they may need to try and get back to some sort of normality. The orange space that you see there are pet facilities, so clients can bring their pets with them. There's a kennel and a cat room and other facilities for storing pets as their clients receive the help and treatment that they need. Then the top right hand corner there, the yellow area that you see, that's the children's sanctuary. So again, if clients come with their children, they have a safe space to play and learn with direct access out again to that courtyard space. The pink box that you see is forensic medical. So if you've been the victim of a sexual assault, this is where you will come to be examined. It also has a direct entry point that's separate to the main entry, so that it can be operated at different hours if required than the main Palomar facility. And then the green that you see there is another partner that Palomar work with, Variety Care, who provide some medical facilities here as well, again with its own entrance and lobby space. So that's all the client facilities that are on the first floor. The other facilities, as you can see, the plan gets a little bit complicated when you add everything else in. The other facilities here are mainly offices for Palomar and caseworkers. On the bottom left-hand corner is a coffee shop, a proposed coffee shop with a community hall behind. That coffee shop will be open to the public as well as users of the building, and it's deliberately set on the corner. The entrance is away from the main entrance to the building, but it opens up to the rest of Midtown. Then there's a secondary entrance which isn't marked on here, but it's off Hudson, there to the right-hand side of the page. That is a dedicated staff entry, so the staff can come and go to this building up to the second floor without having to interact with any of the clients, which can cause potential distress. So that's a quick rundown of the first floor. As I said, quite complicated. I'm happy to answer any questions at the end on that. Moving up to the second floor, as I mentioned earlier, this is fundamentally just for all the office spaces for Palomar and also their partnering agencies. So I won't go through all of them. You can see them listed there on the left. Fundamentally, this is a floor plate with open office space and also some private closed offices as required, but it also focuses around that central area that's shown in blue, which is a break room, and the idea is that it's a big open space where people can gather to help improve communication and collaboration amongst all those different partnering agencies. The third floor, there should be a lot going on the third floor, but as you can see from this slide, right now, due to budgetary constraints, the third floor is proposed to be an alternate. So the base build will not include the fit out of this floor, but the fit out does include a very large community room that can be split into two for large events, that has a terrace out to the left-hand side of the page here that with views out to the city. It has a number of therapy rooms, group therapy rooms and individual therapy rooms, and some general workspace and support spaces for the members of staff, including Zen rooms and gyms and call rooms and things like that. A big part of the design and the base of the design has been color theory, and this helps with wayfinding, and it's also very important use of color to help calm people down and make them feel at ease and welcome and safe and secure. So that's been a big push for us, both on the inside of the building and on the outside of the building, and I'll run through some of the spaces with you now. So this is the main reception space. As you come into the building, the reception's there on your right. There's a waiting area on the left that's private, so people feel safe and secure, and they can have their back to a wall and face the door so they can see who's coming and going. The glass doors that you see in the middle there, that's the security line that takes you through into the main part of the building. This is the sort of living room areas, as I was trying to explain earlier. The idea is that they have quite a domestic feel, so we've introduced elements like fireplaces and bookshelves to make people feel more at ease and make it feel less institutional. And then off this space are all those intake rooms that I was talking about earlier with direct access to that courtyard. This is a fun space for the kids. This is the kids' sanctuary, so a taller double height space, potentially with a slide in the middle there, and on the left you can see direct access out to the courtyard. Moving up to the second floor, this is the break room, so this is the area that we're hoping will encourage collaboration amongst those different partnering agencies. Large kitchen space, lots of different types of seating, and a large terrace with views out over the city. Again, the idea of color theory and the use of materials comes to the outside of the building. So the base on the first floor is a light white brick. This is a solid, strong, robust material that will stand the test of time and can deal with people rubbing up against it and interacting with it. But it also evokes emotions of new beginnings and cleanliness and safety as well. So people will feel safe and secure as they come to this building. Moving up, the different bands represent peace and healing, tranquility and growth, and then the top floor, rebirth and renewal. So if you come to the building initially, you'll spend most of the time on the first floor, and then as you move through the Palomar program, and then you come back as an outpatient for therapy sessions on the third floor, you sort of move through the system and move through to sort of rebirth and renewal as you leave and start, hopefully, a new journey. This is a more detailed look at the materials. So the bands that you see, the colored green bands, are made from a metal panel. They're triangulated in pattern, and we're playing around with the difference between a gloss and a matte finish, which will just create a dynamic facade and reflect the light in different ways as it hits it throughout the day. And that's what that could look like from Hudson, on the corner of Hudson and Park Place. That's a closer view there. You can see the cafe that faces towards the rest of Midtown and sort of opens up. It's been a real challenge, this building, to create a building that feels open and welcoming and engages with the community at the first floor level, but is also incredibly safe and secure, and people feel safe and secure when they're inside it, and people can't look through windows and see people and potentially stalk people. So that's been a bit of a challenge, but we think we've achieved that well with the cafe and the main entrance being a real feature along Hudson. That's a view of the northeast corner looking down Hudson and 11th Street. And then that's a view looking directly across from the parking lot towards the main entrance, where you can see clearly, I'll talk a bit about the landscape shortly, but there's a slight different landscaping change to help highlight you to where the main entrance is. And you can see that it's light and bright, and then moving up the two terraces there to the different floors help break up that facade. That's a more detailed view there of the entry. The landscaping, as I mentioned, it's a relatively simple landscaping plan. All the plants we've proposed are robust and require a low amount of maintenance. And they've been selected based on their orientation, so they will thrive if they're facing north or south and east and west. And then we've selected key species, as I mentioned, for the entry area, just to highlight that and make it stand out. Okay, so just quickly talking about the budget, and I think David would also like to talk about some of this later on as well. But the original project budget was 26 million, just over 26 million. We are proposing, due to escalation in costs, that we use 2 million from the endowment trust to boost that budget up to 28 million, just over 28 million. As you can see there, taking in consideration contingencies, fees and things like that, and also some of the site costs that we've had to absorb with regards to relocation of utilities. The overall current estimate sits at just under 28 million at 27,900,000. That does not include the alternates that you see there on the right. So that will not include the third floor fit out, as I mentioned earlier. It will not include the cafe fit out. Certain security items, which we hope will be paid for by other means. I think the police department will cover some of those costs. Surplus furniture that isn't required on day one for the operation of the building. The furniture for the police department, which will be provided by the police department. Kids' play equipment is not included in the base bid. And then technical, that is other things for meeting rooms, TV screens and things like that. Other technical IT-related equipment has been taken out. So the cost of the alternates equates to 5.3 million, nearly 5.4 million. This is just a bit more detailed description of some of those alternates that aren't included in the base build. So bottom left there, you see the cafe space. That will just be left as a white box. The definition of a white box is there on the left as well, but I'll just read that quickly, which is exposed concrete floor, unfinished walls. The exterior walls will be constructed, and shaft walls for any chases will be included as well. The ceilings will just be the exposed concrete deck above. Mechanical and plumbing, so the air will be provided to those spaces, but not the individual ducts to make that work, and lighting will be temporary, anything needed for life safety. So that would be the cafe would be white box. The security items that we're talking about are a security film to the front windscreens, which is, not windscreens, front doors and windows, which will provide bullet resistant glass, and then to the reception, that's a bulletproof screen below the reception desk and a bulletproof glass screen above. Again, we believe that the police department may cover the cost of those because they were concerned about that. And then the outdoor play equipment that's shown there will not be included. Moving to the second floor, as I mentioned, the police department will be providing their own furniture, so that's included just as an alternate. And then internally, the slide and rock climbing wall will not be provided. It's part of the base build. The third floor will be completely white box, as I mentioned earlier. And that's it. Happy to
Dan, thank
answer
you.
any questions. No problem.
Questions? Bob?
Yeah, I was curious. I didn't see in any of the the renderings, whether there was any plan for bollards around the exterior of the building. The building front's pretty close to Hudson and 11th.
Correct. They are not included in the zoomed-in view, but they are included on the slightly zoomed-out views you see there. So there are bollards that go across the front entry area there, so no cars are able to drive into that.
I saw those in the entry area. I didn't know if there was a plan for further around the.
There is currently not a plan for further around the building,
Okay,
just
just-
that entry.
Unfortunately, I have a little concern, given the nature of the clientele
Sure.
at Palomar, that there may be those who are unhappy that somebody is visiting Palomar and want
Yeah,
to take
absolutely.
some kind of action. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Great question. Other, Chelsea?
I think probably more, let's get into this discussion about the budget. Just as it stands, it seems pretty disappointing to me that we have to restrict ourselves from all these community spaces because of the budget, including the cafe. That seems like a pretty big, from a pedestrian point of view who is in Midtown regularly, and you know how Palomar impacts the community, it seems like a big deal that should not be part of this project. So I guess what is the plan? What is the plan to actually satisfy this need without continuing to push this burden of the white boxing building, which is basically is going to be half the building, it looks like, onto Palomar? How do we restrict and limit that burden from Palomar?
Right, so we have a budget. We have to build to a budget. So let's talk about the plan, the extra $2 million that's in there.
Okay.
We've gone to great lengths to do all the value engineering that Dan has showed you to try and get this within budget. The last thing we wanted to do was not do a third floor, because getting a third floor on a building is really difficult. And
Right.
I
And very
won't say
expensive.
impossible, but yeah, expensive. So at least we're getting that third floor in there, and none of us like the white box piece of it, but at least we can get to that point. If you recall, whenever we added the $100 million to the entire program, the operator at Palomar wanted to put that money that they had, about $4.5 million, into the investment fund for their operations, which was great. But the only way that we see that we're going to be able to get this project on the street, because we are losing, every month we are losing significant money to inflation. So the plan that we have is similar to the Coliseum, in that the program as a whole has money in the account for projects that are near or that are under construction, but money's not spent yet. We borrowed money. If you remember, we borrowed, I think, $35 million temporarily for the Coliseum while they got their bonds put together. And then they did, and they paid that, and that's all essentially been paid back. What we're proposing here is $2 million out of the MAP's total funds borrowed, pledged against money that's in that investment fund. That allows them to keep the money in the investment fund earning interest during this time. The timing will be such that when the project is finished, when it's time for them to pay that with that money, we should be talking about excess collections. And you know, we're running right now at 3.2, that's $32 million. Much like MAPS 3, there was a conversation towards the end of what are we going to do with this money and how might it go? This is no guarantee, but at that point, I would propose that we submit basically an application or a request to City Council to reimburse that $2 million out of excess collections. The timing is such that it works really well.
Okay.
The subcommittee has approved this. They've also asked me to put together an early request to the advisory board that when it comes time to suggest where those excess collections would go, that they've already made that request.
Right.
Okay, so tell me if this is an appropriate understanding. So we would take I'm a little confused about the difference, I think, between the endowment and how that's connected to the MAPS money, and how, I guess, the order of operations of where is it coming from and when does it get paid back? And you just spoke to that a little bit about the, making sure that we, per the subcommittee.
Yeah, at the end of
have-
construction, yeah.
Okay.
And so Chelsea, just to back up, and I think that this happened before you were on the board. So there was a in the resolution, it specifically stated capital dollars and operating dollars for different projects. Not every project got operating and maintenance dollars. That disbursement was made from this body to a separate entity that is the MAPS Trust that invests and manages those dollars. Okay, so they're not part of the pool that David has in the MAPS 4 pool of dollars to work with. Okay, so what David is outlining is essentially, these may not be the right words, but I'm taking $2 million of what's in the MAPS pool that is committed to projects that we don't need to expend those dollars yet, but it's almost collateralized with the $2 million that Palomar operator, that Palomar as the operator chose to put in the trust that's over here. So to ensure that those dollars are there for those other projects that it's committed to when the time comes. But we're looking at the timeline, so MAPS 4 collections will end in roughly the early part of 2028. This project coming to completion in early 27 will be close enough to the end of the collection time that we'll probably be able to pretty fairly guess or estimate what that, right now we're at 3.2% over. At that point, we can probably estimate what will be have in excess collections by the time the collection ends. At that point, we'll be able to see, and City Council would say, okay, we have X amount more in collections, and we will disperse it in this manner. So what David is referencing is, as was discussed at the subcommittee yesterday, go ahead and have that application for the Family Justice Center to receive $2 million of that excess, when we're able to say that there is excess, and that would be the funds that would be used to pay back the big pot and then release the collateral of the two. Am I explaining that correctly?
Right.
Okay. Does that make sense?
I think so. The idea is effectively we're borrowing from the endowment in order to have the cash on hand right now, but the goal and hope is that we'll be able to make that endowment whole again before the operating costs are necessary?
No.
Okay.
We're borrowing from the MAPS pool with the collateral of the $2 million that's in the endowment. So those dollars will stay there, okay, with the goal or the hope that the excess will fill back in the $2 million in the MAPS pool, and this will stay intact.
Okay, but that does not address the actual build-out of these
Correct.
spaces?
That's
Okay. What does Palomar think about this?
They have,
Concerns.
yeah.
They're not, this would not be their first goal, right? They would want all of the 5.4 funded.
I just want to express my concerns also.
Okay. Shay, did you have anything you wanted to add?
So, I don't have really anything to add that hasn't already been said. I just wanted to share that it wasn't an easy vote to advance it because we wished we could have a nice, easy resolution right there in the subcommittee. But it just felt like there was way more risk in waiting due to the uncertainty of inflation, maybe even tariffs. Personally, I don't think construction materials are going to get any cheaper. So it was hard, but we felt like we would be doing the right thing for the longer term. And I thank David for helping us with that I can't remember what you called it, but the early request to replenish the funds, getting us in there ahead of anybody else maybe. So thank you.
Anything else? Yes, Monique?
Well, I just think this is a very difficult precedent to make because I see on other projects that will be over budget as well. How is it gonna work, right? So if we set this way, it's possible that other projects would want the same type of plan as well. And I think that starts us down a slippery slope that I'm very uncomfortable with.
And I think that that's a fair concern to express. Okay, any other, Dan, thank you. Any other questions for Dan so he doesn't have to keep standing? Any other questions for Dan? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate all your work and your presentation. Any other discussion? Okay, so the item before us is approval for the final plans and specs to go out as presented by Dan in accordance with the funding plan that David has outlined, that Mr. Todd has outlined. Okay, is that correct? All of that is included. There's no further discussion. I'd take a motion in a second. Please cast your votes. Oh, sorry, I'm on computer. Okay. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 2H, presentation on the Oklahoma City MAPS Investment and Operating Trust calendar year. I think that's supposed to be 2025? Or no, 2024 investment report.
Yeah,
Yes,
so Matt Boggs, our
24.
city treasurer, is here to give you a rundown on what's going on with the investment fund. Just, I think it's
good to know.
appropriate since we
Yeah,
just talked about it so much.
Perfect timing, Matt.
Good time. Well, it's good to be here. Thank you for having me. I serve as treasurer for the investment trust as well. And so we'll take a look at what this last year has brought for us. Make sure I can. Very good. So what we'll talk about today is our current financial condition, get a snapshot of what things looked like at December 31st, 2024. We'll take a brief look at the investment performance, and then also talk briefly about when these disbursements eventually start coming out at a regular basis, what that process is going to look like, because that's one of the biggest questions that we get in administering this. So here's our snapshot. When I say initial amount invested, that's going to be the total amount that has been put in from the original MAPS 4 program, $115.54 million. That was done in a couple of tranches in February of 22 and May of 2023. The trust expenses have been about $145,000 in that time. That's going to be thinking about your investment consultant, your custody bank, your auditor for the annual financial statements. There has been one disbursement that has been made so far. It was during the last fiscal year for $159,000. And the real exciting part, though, is at 12/31/24, the market value of the investments was $133.3 million, which means we're about $17.79 million above the initial investment. That's a 15.4% increase. That's a good place to be at this point. And while I don't have any architectural renderings that I can show you in my presentation, this is the closest thing that I can get to a good picture. This is from Mariner, our investment consultants. And really it shows the picture of, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint. And so when we look at this, the gray shaded area represents the amount that was put in. Remember I said the original investment amount, February of 22, the second tranche in May of 23. Notice that as recently as November of calendar year 2023, the market value was below the amount because we had a tumultuous year. But in this last calendar year where investment performance was great, That gap between the shaded area and the blue line, we want that gap to get bigger because that's where those investment amounts grow. And when the eventual, all these projects are taking disbursements, that's what that will come from. And so this really does give a good snapshot of things are good right now, but we want to keep this for the long course because there are all kinds of projects and needs that come through there. If you want to know, just on the simplest level possible, as of 12/31, here's how it was invested. A little over 55% investments were in equities, 41% in fixed income, and cash equivalents, 3.29%. On the right side there, it kind of breaks down what the dollar amount would be for our $133 million. This is if you want to break that down at the project level. And so, one of the things I mentioned is that the trust has expenses. As we have an invoice come in, like for say our investment consultant, that is allocated throughout based on what share of the pool each project has. There was a disbursement amount that was approved for fiscal year 25, but like I said, only one project took that disbursement, and you can see that on that far right column. But you can see as of there, this is how it makes up that $17.7 million above the corpus or the initial investment is seen right here, and so that's one of the things that we keep an eye on. This is going to be a rough outline of what the next 6 months will look like for this trust. January and February, really, we get the calculation of the distribution amount from the investment consultant. We've got another couple meetings scheduled with them this upcoming week. We've already received their investment report, so we've got the numbers. During the February meeting on February 17th, the trust will be presented with the calculation, and that's where we would approve what sort of disbursements would be available for fiscal year 26, which begins July 1st. February through March, so each trust will receive a letter that essentially says, here's how much is in your project, here's how much the trust has made available for disbursement, and then they will work with these city partners that we have in order to make any requests that will happen. We don't operate in a vacuum, so it was put in here that April through May, that's when the city is finalizing everything for the fiscal year 26 budget. And in May, the MAPS Investment Trust will take a look and see if there are any other changes, because obviously things can change in that time frame. But if all goes well, for those that are requesting disbursements, they would be made in July, and that's the very beginning of the fiscal year, so they can have that for their operations. One of the things that was important for the trust was to work with some of the city partners that we have, and so for each one of the projects, there is either an agreement with the City of Oklahoma City or one of the related trusts to manage that, because they are the ones who have the contract with the operators of the various projects. And so, for example, the Innovation District, they have an agreement with the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust. And the MAPS Investment Trust and the Economic Development Trust have a memorandum of agreement, understanding between the two in order to make sure those funds are allocated in the way that is approved, that goes through our process. And here's an example of the operating disbursement request form that essentially each program would look through and submit this to the city partner, whoever has that operating agreement, in order to make the requests, just so we have a documentation of that, and this is what goes through. That is really all that I had this morning, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the trust, about the investments, and this process.
Any questions, Shay?
I had a question about the disbursement requests. When you receive one, do you move a certain amount of funds into cash?
So, well, I'll give it last year as an example. So last year, because we didn't have our full, we'd like to have it 36 months before we start taking a lot of disbursement requests. We didn't quite have that last year. So the disbursement amount that was approved was 2%. Well, we had 3% in cash, so we didn't have to do that last year. if going forward, if it is amount that's above that, we will work with investment consultants, but most likely it's moving it from whatever we have into a money market fund that kind of keeps it there. And especially early on, when we can pretty much guarantee that not every project is going to be making requests. Most of these, just like was from our earlier presentation, some of these facilities won't be done for another few years, that we're not going to run into that risk as much now, but that is something that we're cognizant of with that. And one of the things in the letter that we send out, every project knows if they do not take their disbursement for the year, those funds can continue to grow. And of course, that's when they will benefit from the growth of those investments years down the road, because like we said, it's a marathon.
I guess I would just add to anybody who was curious about the performance in 2022, being in the financial industry, I can just say that it was lousy for everybody. Lousy for equities, lousy for fixed income. So don't let that discourage you too much. Hopefully it won't happen again.
Yes. Hear, hear, from your lips to the investment god's ears, yes. But I think that, so I serve as the chair for the trust as well, and I think that we all sighed relief when the performance really ticked up and really came back and even exceeded to some extent the expectations from the very beginning. So we're very, very grateful for our investment partners. But that's a great question, Shay, and that's something that the trust balances, is how much to keep in cash with trying to anticipate what's going to be requested, but not losing that earning capacity.
And also knowing and fully understanding that if we have a 4% requirement, that money market funds are not going to cover that for perpetuity. But it was nice for the last year where they could cover it.
Any other questions for Matt and Bob?
The difference in the rate of return, was that a timing thing of when the funds are put into trust? It varied from 14.4 to 16.4.
Absolutely. It's a timing difference. And also during that second tranche, that's when the funds were actually negative. So we parked them in those money market funds there for a little bit. We did a reallocation, but it's impossible when you have that many to have everything 100% correct. And so it is timing differences that causes most of
And another question in terms of the division between equities and fixed I assume bonds.
Mm-hmm.
How often is that reviewed by the trust?
Okay, so we have an investment policy that has been approved that is reviewed annually, and within each investment report quarterly, the investment consultant will go over with the trust, here's where we're out of policy, here's where we're within policy. And in like some of the recent years where equities have vastly overperformed the fixed income, there might be some sort of reallocation to that, but that is looked at quarterly, but is definitely acted upon annually if required.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great questions. Any other questions? No? Matt, thank you.
Thank you.
You're a pleasure to work with. Appreciate your presentation today. So moving on to item 3, discussion items. Do we have anything?
We don't have anything else?
Okay. Item 4, MAPS Advisory Subcommittee reports. Subcommittee reports from anybody?
I just have one item. We will do the groundbreaking for the animal shelter. I just got this email this morning, and it will be at 10 a.m. on Thursday, February 27th. Hope you all can make it out.
Do you promise good weather?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. We'll be there. Okay. Let's see, moving on to item 5, updates and status on MAPS 4 program.
Talked about a lot of the projects. We have 3 sidewalk projects under construction right now in various parts, one of them in the Innovation District. I hope you were able to catch the Innovation Hall that's been completed. Diversion Hub is well under construction. They have all the piers drilled, they have the grade beams in. If the weather hadn't kind of got bad this week, but they still may be standing some steel up, so you may see some vertical elements going up on that building, and then the slab will be poured real soon. So that one's going well, and you saw about the Coliseum.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Todd? Okay, if not, moving on to item 6, comments by board, staff, or citizens. No citizen comments, okay. Anything else from staff?
No, ma'am.
Okay, any other comments by the board? No? Great. Okay, that moves us to item 7, which is adjournment. We are adjourned, and thank you for being here.